If I could get a motion for other consent items?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That being said, with no opposition, we'll move to our action items. And the first item is to adopt the revised February 2025 meeting date by Ms. Houghton.
This is in your packet. And it's caused by, the change is caused by the fact that mid-December, give or take, we learned that the county commission meetings had changed their cadence from what it had been. And we had scheduled, and you approved, board meetings that would have avoided those conflicts. We want our county commissioner to have the ability to be here, and last year, much of the year, that just wasn't the case through absolutely no fault of his own, because of commission meetings. So there are other dates through the year that will be problematic. We just haven't had time to poll all of you about your availability on those dates. But it is the board's prerogative and duty to set board meeting dates. So we present to you a change to February 13th, Thursday, February 13th at 9 a.m. for the February board meeting.
To my fellow board members, I've already announced that I do have an outpatient procedure that day. I have checked with my vice chair and the secretary in case one of them would have to head the meeting, and I think they may be available, but if it becomes an issue, I'll reset so that we can have a quorum.
That date works for me, but I certainly don't want to put you in a position where you have to reschedule a procedure. So is everybody else going to be able to be here?
I'm able, I'm fine.
Yeah, we polled all the board members, and I don't know that we had all 10, but I know we clearly had a quorum.
Okay, yeah, I won't be until late. I have a doctor's appointment that morning myself, so.
So, Mr. Bartlett, you'll be heading the meeting.
She said that after you said you were available.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to select the September 20.
Can we take a vote, please?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move to the selection of the September 2025 trim hearing dates, and that again is by Ms. Houghton.
As you're aware, in September, we need to schedule and hold 2 different trim hearings, a tentative hearing and a final hearing. And there are a whole variety of requirements and restrictions around those, when they can be during the day, after 5 p.m. They cannot conflict with either the school board or the county's trim dates, which have already been set. We avoided a Jewish holiday. And there are certain requirements that dictate sort of the time between the two, given that notice needs to be given in written form in a newspaper, and that's only Wednesdays and Sundays, of what the tentative hearing is recommending for the final hearing. So all of those things, as well as polling all of you, brought us to these pairs of dates that are listed here, as option 1, 2, and 3. Board members had indicated to us in a prior year that it was really helpful to them to try to set these as early as possible in the year. January was their preference, so that they could plan other things accordingly. I know that doesn't work as well for some people who just don't know what their September schedule is, but in the spirit of we're doing our best, these are the options. If you're able to know today that you can commit or that you're likely for those dates, we can select the pair of dates today, which would be ideal. But if you're not ready to do that, we can do that next month.
Is there a pleasure from the board as to whether or not we all have access to our calendars this far in advance to go ahead and try to put the trim hearing dates on this month, or if you guys would like to do it next month, have an opportunity to look at your schedules and come back next month?
Madam Chair, any of the options work for me. I note that Thursday nights, generally, there's like commission meetings and things like that, so I don't know if there would be a potential conflict down the road. So Monday nights, there's also sometimes commission meetings, but I would prefer option 1 or 2.
Mr. Latvala, will any of those dates conflict with any commission meeting?
Sorry, we're sharing the dates.
Okay. I thought I saw your assistant. Maybe he can help you. Where did he go?
Yeah, option 1 works. And option. Yeah, option one is good. And, cause we have a night meeting on the 18th, but I don't see that one listed. And we have a night meeting on the 4th, and I don't see that one listed. So those dates work.
So all three?
So Mr. Ong's has proposed options, 1 or 2. I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to look at their schedule and want to weigh in.
I think option 1 works best for me, so.
I'm good with option 1 or 2. Last part of 3.
Okay. So I think it's proposed option 1, if everyone could take a look to see if option 1, do we all have the dates? If not, I can give you. Okay,
Pass it on down.
we're going to pass it down.
Yeah.
We'll give it,
They were in your packet, but I understand you may not have printed out every page of your packet.
We'll give Ms. Rutland and Ms. Nage a chance to look at their calendars.
Can I ask, Olivia, do you have at hand what the polling indicated? Were there people who knew they could not be here on option 1? The 8th?
Yes, 8 people for the highest
Oh,
probability.
okay.
We need to always go with the highest probability.
And option 1 had 8
They like option one.
individuals? Okay.
Option 1,
Yes, ma'am.
So move, option 1.
all in favor?
Second, aye.
Any opposed? There you have it, option 1. The next thing on our action items will be to approve the non-operating and capital projects requested for application, and that will be by Mr. Stivers and Ms. Houghton. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is a 4-part individual approval request that we're having put before you today. And the first one is a request for approval for the award of the projects. And I'll give you a little background. On September 3rd, we released the RFA, request for applications, for these capital top projects. And the budgeted amount was $5.1 million. Agencies could request up to 3 projects, not to exceed $350,000. The applications had to have a minimum score of 65, and there was an average of 73, almost 74%. The total 37 projects are recommended for award. 34 projects will be fully funded, and the other 3 projects will be partially funded. And the partially funded piece is basically due to ineligible costs that were included in the package and/or cost savings that we were able to identify. So, Judge Moore, we are requesting approval, number 1, and recommend the board award $3,552,000 for 37 projects for the projects that are on your spreadsheet and in your package and in the memo here.
Do we have any questions before I ask for a motion? Oh, we do have a question? Okay, we have a card, okay.
We have a public comment on action item 3C, the capital RFAs. It is David Hale, the Maddie Williams Neighborhood Family Center. Mr. Hale, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I'm David Hale, Executive Director of Maddie Williams Neighborhood Family Center. We serve Safety Harbor, Oldsmar, and Eastern Clearwater. And I appreciate this opportunity to thank this board and thank the Juvenile Welfare Board for all they've done to support the center. The request we've included here is critical to expanding our services to meet growing demand in these communities. And I just wanted to share with you what it means to us to be under consideration for this funding. For those following along, we've been under construction for a year to expand the size of our building. Since 2020, requests for support from the center have more than doubled. And my predecessor, Janet Hooper, who was a longtime executive director who's here today, really met that demand by exceeding expectations, right? By stacking food in hallways to keep the food pantry going, by borrowing space, and by relying on our neighbors. And so this longtime vision to grow the center is just about to be realized. The funding we've asked for here is critical, not just because it allows us to fully utilize that space and continue to expand the services within it, but also because of the timing. So if the funding is approved today, what it will allow us to do is immediately, as soon as we gain access to our new food pantry space and a new multi-purpose room where we'll be able to hold trainings and conferences, is this funding will allow us to continue to renovate the rest of the building. It'll add offices for our family support team, and for the first time, a private space to meet with the families that we serve. It also contains a dedicated area for children of families, which if you've ever met with parents while the kids are in the room, that's a big help. And so we just wanted to put a flavor to it and thank you personally for your consideration, let you know how much it means and what a privilege it is for us to serve the families and children of these communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Any more comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Judge Moore. The second item is for project advances. Advances were requested on 7 projects in total, and from 5 agencies. 4 of the advances were less than $75,000, and per JWB policy, Ms. Houghton approved, subject to board approval of the remaining advance request. So the request before you, Judge Moore, is 3 project advances that exceed $75,000 are recommended for board approval. The total advances, by the way, are about $450,000 in the grand total of all 7. These advances will help for mobilization, pre-construction, and various other types of activities that need to occur before the project can commence.
Any questions or comments before we take a motion? Do I have a motion? Motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Moore. The next item is land use agreements and the use of those land use agreements. There are 2 types of land use agreements, one for agency-owned property and the other is for leased property. We have one agency that leases their property and their landlord has agreed to sign the land use agreement if approved here today. There are 10 agencies with 16 projects. And 9 of the 10 agencies are agency-owned property. So there's one agency that leases their property. And we are suggesting approval, recommending approval, Judge Moore, for the use of the land use agreements for the award of 16 projects from 10 agencies contingent upon entering these agreements for the project award.
Any comments or questions before I ask for a motion? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. The last approval for this item is for a budget amendment recommendation. And the total budget for this solicitation, this advertisement, this RFA, is $5,654,000. And $5.1 million of that is allocated for these current year projects. We had 3 projects that carried over from last year due to various reasons that increases, that makes up the $5.6 million. The carryover projects total about $555,000. And with this, the use of the land use agreements, we'll need about $500 for the filing of those with Pinellas County. So the request before you today that we're seeking approval on is JWB recommends approving the allocation amendment to reallocate $1,547,000 from the budget into our fund balance because it wasn't, there weren't enough projects to spend all the money in this go around. So we'll put that into fund balance and hold that there until other uses come available for it. So that's what the request before you is for a budget allocation of $1,547,000 to go from the RFA project budget to the fund balance. And Judge Moore, that's our request.
Yes, Judge Moore, just on all four of these, I know this request for applications takes a long time for staff to review, and I want to thank the staff for doing that, but also, I believe, Beth, you involved a number of members of the community and some other key stakeholders to evaluate these applications. I know it takes a long time, and I appreciate those individuals dedicating their time to do that, because we don't take this millions of dollars giving out lightly, and it takes a lot of eyes on it to make sure it's in the right space. And I know one of my school board members participated in that process. I know it takes a long time, and I appreciate all of the staff and community members who contributed to evaluating these.
And I want to just shout out the thank you to Laura Hine, school board member and with construction experience in her background, was particularly why we reached out. And it is a significant commitment of her time to read how many applications?
47 or
47 applications that have voluminous documentation, and then sit in two days of evaluation committee. The others are, the other four were individuals within JWB with different perspectives. But we thank Laura for doing that.
Do I have a motion? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Mr. Stavers, you stay right there. Next, we're going to the approval for advance to directions for mental health.
This approval request is for an advance for directions for Mental Health Services, Inc. And board policy allow advances to be 1/4 of the agency's JWB annual program allocation. Their total budget is almost $7.6 million, so we certainly meet that threshold. Any advances over $75,000 requires board approval. This particular agency has experienced substantial growth over the last few years, and the reimbursements within their reimbursements program, which requires working capital. And with the growth that they've had so quickly, this $250,000 will certainly go towards the 5 programs that JWB funds and about $7.6 million in total allocation. And this request is recommended by JWB. Judge Moore.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are moving along pretty quickly. We will get to our presentations. We have the JWB Annual Dashboard Review by Ms. Boges.
Good morning. Karen Boges, Chief Program Officer, and I will be co-presenting with Robbie Stivers, our Chief Financial Officer, on the JWB Annual Dashboard. And we've been doing this presentation for several years, so I'm hoping that this is familiar to all of you. At each of your seats, you have the one-page snapshot of the dashboard. And so we will be reviewing outcomes in our strategic result areas, as well as some financial outcomes. And we include past year's data so you can see any trends that are happening. And please remember, these are for JWB program participants. And there you go. This is the full page. So I'll move to the first slide, which is school readiness participants. So the program participants that participate in school readiness programs are children, infants through 5 years old. They attend our early learning centers, they attend or they access our School Readiness Match, School Readiness Plus through our Early Learning Coalition so that they can attend early learning centers. And we have a number of support programs that are included. This specific cohort that we're looking at this morning are those children that entered into kindergarten in August of 2023. So it's not all of the 0 to 5 children, it is those children that entered into kindergarten. And as you can see, we had a decline in this area. And we wanted to understand more closely what happened here. The previous year, we were at 57% readiness. So children who enter into kindergarten take an assessment within the first 30 to 60 days of entering in, and a readiness score is determined. So we dug into the data more and wanted to really talk about what we're seeing for this cohort, specific cohort of kids for this year. So as you can see, we have the cohort has, or not this, the cohort for this year, the free and reduced lunch category, which is economically disadvantaged families, has gone from fiscal year 21, where it was 84%, up to 90%. The good news about this is that we are targeting the right families. So those families that are most in need of access to early learning programs and services. The next category is an exceptional category, and so these students are identified as having either learning disabilities or some sort of disability. And as you can see here, from last year, where it was at 13%, we almost doubled to 24%. And these are the kids that are identified. And what we do know over the last several years and since the pandemic is that our early learning centers have been struggling, not just on the staffing side, but also with the children, with the behaviors that they're seeing and other challenges. And then the next category, limited English proficiency, we see that has also increased from the previous year. So we believe that this may be impacting the outcomes for this cohort. So we're going to continue to monitor this really closely. We work with the school system really closely and our early learning coalition as we continue to move forward. Our next slide is for our school success participants. These participants participate in our out-of-school time programs, which can be both community-based as well as school-based. They are elementary, middle, and high school students that are included. We also have student support services, which is truancy prevention, our violence prevention, and other supportive programs. And as we can see here from the previous year, we are moving in the right direction for both the standardized tests that we look at for proficiency in both ELA, English Language Arts, as well as math. And so again, we work very closely with the school system. We work closely with all of our providers, aligning those support services. And obviously, this is not just the result of JWB program. This is the result of many interventions that happen during the school day. And we just want to ensure that we're always in alignment with what's happening during the school day in our programs. Next up is strengthening community. And here we have been, with our Childhood Hunger Initiative, working with many community partners throughout the last several years and really trying to meet the need of childhood hunger in this community. And the need is continuing to grow. We've continued to put investments in, and so we have over 6 million meals that were provided to children. This specifically are meals that happen over weekends, summer breaks, school vacations, when children are not in school and may not have access to food. And some of the highlights is that summer break spots had the largest increase with almost 395,000 meals provided, and that was a 33% increase over the last year. Pack-a-Snack provided equivalent of 250 meals, the largest number since COVID in 2020. GA Foods, evening and weekends, 163,000 meals. And St. Pete Free Clinic, who is a major partner in this, provided over 5 million households with kids and pantry locations. The next slide is our prevention of child abuse and neglect. And our participants in these programs are a number of our home visiting programs, like Healthy Families, Nurse Family Partnership Program, our behavioral health programs. And so what we see here over the years is that we've been very steady in this area of preventing children and families during services from entering into the child welfare system, and post, which is 1 year post-closure, from entering into the child welfare system. And so, the programs are effective at what they're doing. I know a lot of times we're asked, these are great outcomes, but what about those families that are really hard to reach? And so over the last 2 years, we funded through the strategically aligned RFP 6 additional programs in this area. So this year, actually, we'll be doing our staff for evaluation will be doing the analyzation of those programs as well. And so we'll be looking at this closely to see what impact we have. A few other things that I wanted to note in this area is that overall, what we've seen in our community since Family Support Services, which is the community-based care provider in this community, working with our local DCF child protection team, what we're seeing is that we had a 27% reduction in the number of children entering into care from last year to this year, so from last December to this December. In addition to that, we're seeing an increase from around 23% to 32% of children achieving permanency. So those are some good news that's happening as we're trying to really support families in this community and keep them out of the child welfare system. And so with that, Robbie, I'm going to hand over the financial performance measures to him.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
These financial measures for JWB is as of 9:30, so just be mindful of that. And I haven't seen any change in them, by the way. I just wanted to note that because I think it's important. There's two measures here which I think are excellent for us to be looking at, and the first is in the blue chart, the blue column there. And that is a percentage of administrative costs. And these are the costs that JWB incurs in order to support our staff and our operating cost here, to support our programs, et cetera. And those are divided by total expenditures and fund balance. So you're trying to get a feel for how much are you spending for administrative costs to support the programs relative to your total expenditures and the fund balance included in that. And we've always maintained, or at least for the last 4 years, about a 6% with a target of 10%. And the target is something that we just kind of gauge ourselves and keep in mind as we incur cost or as other costs roll off, of how we can invest and be more efficient and effective. So that's one of the measures. The other is in the red column, and it's a percentage of fund balance relative to total expenditures. And the target in fund balance is 25%, and that's, if you've heard us talk about a lot, that's the 3 months reserves that we keep on hand. 1 month for unforeseen expenses, and the other just for operational reserves that we need to keep on hand. To give you some perspective, for 23, and these are audited numbers, we needed to keep about $22 million on hand then, but the trajectory is very positive. Since I've been here for the last 7 months, there has been a focus on reasonably spending fund balance down, as well as controlling the need for any future requests to adjust millage one way or the other. And I think for the last two of the 3 years that we've had millage decreases, which is a very positive thing as well. But if you'll note on the chart, we have gone from 70%, from 23 to 63% in fund balance, and now we're down to 45%. So these directives from the board, as well as all the good hard work that's done by JWB and staff, are certainly revealing themselves in our numbers here as we go forward. But that's the extent of my presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, so that's percentage of fund balance compared to total expenditures. So we still have 45% of our total expenditures as the fund balance makes up 45% of our total expenditures. Is that correct?
Yeah, remember that in this year, it's estimated with our budget, we need to keep about $28 million in reserve by board policy.
For the
And
3
those
months.
are those 3 months.
Right.
So it's roughly half of that, give or take, of what you were talking about.
Understood. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any more questions?
I just want to commend the staff for it's great work, and I know you've really focused in on it, and you've answered or begun to answer questions that we have from a performance, financial performance measurement, and we still need to continue to focus on it. I do have a concern, though, and it's not specifically, it's more what we're seeing in the numbers. What I'm struggling with is I also sit on 2 other boards, the ELC and the Licensing Bureau, and we see this decline of available or children going into these programs. And what concerns me is, how could that be when we're seeing broad growth in Florida and the like? Some of which, and I've tried, personally, I'm working on trying to understand it better without going over sunshine laws, but trying to understand this issue, and some of which might be that people are moving to other parts of Florida, Pasco and others, and that's why we're not seeing as much of the growth of the children. But I don't think that's the only answer. I think we need to continue to focus in on it. But what it all leads me to is two areas. One is, and it's going to go back to our strategic planning process. One is, are we funding the right projects in the areas? Are we have funding that should be going somewhere else? The second part is to better understand the issues that we're having in behavioral health and others, such as autism, and the lack of understanding I think we have in general across not only Pinellas County or across Florida or across the country. The growth rate of autism continues to grow within this country, and for what reason we don't truly know. And I think that's an area which we're going to need to consider as part of the strategic plan going forward as to how we might understand it better and how we might be able to help and address that in the future with some of our funding moving on. So that's kind of hopefully my focus as we go forward to the strategic plan, that we spend time doing just that. And then hopefully, we see money going into ELC that, they're having excess at a time when, 2-3 years ago or so, they were asking for more money and asking for things. Well, they've got it, but it can't be spent because there's no students there to get it. Now, at the same token, you're seeing as those students that are there are gaining tremendous value from being in these programs. So it's kind of, what do we do here? And how do we better address the needs of the community? So that's where I'm at.
Just want to ask Laura Peel to let you know what the total number of children served last year was by JWB programs and what that trend has been. My recollection is it's about 77,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say around 77, and I'm sorry, I don't have that
It's okay.
exactly, but it has been trending up, our total participants served.
It also leads me then to think about the poverty levels and where is it really at? We set the bar at a poverty level that might be very different now than it was, a few years ago. So, thank you.
Dr. Morrison Rodriguez?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think one of the factors going forward in looking at school performance data, and the superintendent could probably speak to this better, but there's going to be a shifting base as more children move into alternative schools that are outside of the public school system. And we don't know, for example, if that means that the public school system will retain children who come from lower socioeconomic groups and have fewer alternatives. And so when we see, a decline in performance, it may be the base is shifting. I think we need to look and see if that's an issue of the base shifting. That would be one thing. And then Beth may speak to this as well, but we are within JWB starting to do some serious research on autism, the ideological factors, the screening for it, what may need to be built into some of our programs in picking up children diagnostically much earlier. So we are looking at the autism issue.
Just because I have done some additional research, it doesn't appear that the alternative schools are growing that much bigger at this point either right now. So that's what's got me kind of
Well, that's
confused.
why I said the superintendent could speak to it better, but we have seen some shift of children to alternative schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, no problem. It's my wheelhouse. So there is a declining enrollment in Pinellas County schools, and that's because there's a declining birth rate in Pinellas County. And so whereas we had 106,000 students 20 years ago, we have about 7,000 students now. And the vast majority of that declining enrollment is in South St. Petersburg. And if you look at the redevelopment of St. Petersburg, the things that are being built are typically not available to young families, right? Beautiful condominiums, and they don't have children. So that is a large shift. And your point, Dr. Morrison Rodriguez, is a good one, right? As the family empowerment scholarships continue to grow, what does that look like? In Pinellas, we haven't seen a lot of students leave traditional public schools to go to other options. We've seen most students who are already there access that scholarship. Still, we have the Florida Policy Institute, if you want to check out that website, it just did an analysis on every county and how many students and what the costs are. But there's not a lot of growth, and if you think about St. Petersburg, you don't see new private schools, you don't see new charter schools. Our charter school enrollment has been essentially the same for 15 years. So it is it's more affordable for families to go elsewhere in Florida, to your point, Pasco County, Manatee County, Hillsborough, Eastern Hillsborough County. And so that's a challenge for housing for our own employees, and it's a challenge for that. To these metrics, I would say that there's no greater predictor of third grade reading than kindergarten readiness and VPK completion. And the state has very clearly shown students who successfully complete VPK and what their third grade reading score is. And there's a direct correlation, very direct correlation. So to Mike's point, I would agree through our strategic planning process, investments in quality early learning programs are critical for the rest of a child's life. And to that end, I also think in the second block there, the school success, that the target should be raised. We're proud to see those increases as a school system. JWB should be proud of those for the things that they fund, and we can all move that target up a little bit more. But the early learning piece to that, the school readiness, is a critical component to have early quality care.
Ms. Nage?
Yes, I just wanted to speak briefly as to the issue of ELC and early child care. I think that there is a great lack of available child care for certain age groups. We're talking about infants, so there are less kids who are utilizing ELC because there's nothing for them to attend. There is no availability. So if you're talking about infants, and I'm a little bit closer to daycare age children parenting than some others, but it is, you're talking about wait lists. When I was pregnant with my third child, my first telephone call was to our daycare, not my mom, the daycare, because I needed to get him on a wait list because I needed to work. My husband needed to work. We had 2 other kids. There was no. So I think that in great part, that loss of funding or that excess funding has to do with the lack of availability for that age group. Infants, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. Once they get to that 3-year-old stage, then we're talking about a whole different situation where there's a lot more availability in our clubs and other centers where they can go to preschool. But before that, it is incredibly hard. So you're seeing a lot of those kids who are just staying at home, whether or not they should be staying home, whether or not they're able to stay home, whether or not the parents can afford to keep them home and not work. So I think that is part of it, and I certainly would like to see some research or some movement in that area to make more available, if that's possible.
And I would totally agree with most everything you said, except that there's not a loss of funding. There is more funding that has arisen. The problem is who gets the access to it. That's really the problem. And then, from a standpoint of opening up a daycare center for those areas, do we have the available staffing to be able to do that? Are we paying for that? All those issues really need to be addressed, because again, what you're just proving to me is that there are children out there that could very well need and could use this valuable asset, but for whatever reason, we haven't been able to level the playing field to allow more growth in the area and to allow everyone to have the access to it. And I think, again, that goes back to our strategic planning process that says, what is child welfare? And what was it then, what is it now?
I just wanted to mention, everything that I have heard all of you say is consistent with what we see, what we experience, and what we're working towards. I just wanted to mention a few of the things we have attempted to do in this space. One of the strong reasons there are not enough places for infants and toddlers is that pay rates via ELC or anything else are not adequate to keep the much higher staffing levels and, to our mind, qualified staff that have early childhood education background. We provide scholarships at SPC for those pursuing early childhood education degrees and have for a very long time. In 2022 or 23, when we rolled out workforce stabilization efforts, Karen will know the details better than I, but we were looking specifically at agencies across our portfolio that were having a hard time funding the programs funding the staff that we were funding the programs for. And across the board, between then and frankly funding that you approved last spring, that was for our club, we've funded significant increases in salaries for individuals who are working with children, and that's been across the board in the early childhood education and care component of what we fund. This board has also urged us to, and at the best pace we could, to fund and nudge and encourage opening of additional QELI sites, Quality Early Learning Institutes, that Mr. Hendrick mentioned. There's no doubt that that's the first bit of magic that can then lead to school readiness, that can then lead to reading on grade level, that can then lead to graduation rates and so on. Our difficulty in doing more of that has typically been that we don't have qualified organizations that have had space or access to space to do that. This is not a promise, but I will just tell you that I had a conversation yesterday with one of our funded agencies who have a QELI site that we fund, that in a new location or sort of a location being re-envisioned, let me put it that way, by them, they are looking at adding and have received the capital funding for 2 more infant rooms and 2 more toddler rooms, which may not sound like a lot, but it's a lot in that world. The question to me was, do you think maybe in the future sometime JWB might be able to help us fund operations? And I said, actually, I can do one better in that once we get information from you, I'm more than happy to present that to our board, and our board has wanted to find new opportunities to add QELI sites. So I obviously did not speak for you, but just said we would absolutely entertain it. We would present it to our board. That program, if it gets off the ground, would start in July of this year. So it would need to be out of this year's funds. So once I know more, on that particular piece, I'll bring it back to you.
I would just echo what Ms. Nage said. We have several employees, and that is always a struggle anytime anyone turns up pregnant. That the question of, what are you going to do for childcare is really a struggle for all income levels. It just isn't available. And so if you're talking to people and they're asking if that's available, I wonder if we might be more assertive in soliciting that type of opportunity for people. And letting the organizations know that that is something that we're interested in and would have money to fund. Because it sounds like in the conversation she was unsure whether the board would be interested in it. So I don't know if we shouldn't reach out to all agencies, with a little announcement like this is 0 to 3 is what we're focusing on. And, come talk to us and there might be opportunities for you to grow.
And at least last year, I know this board had a goal for us and funding for us to to fund another Quelly site, and I believe that was true for the year before as well. And we did exactly that in reaching out. Now Karen can speak to that with more accuracy.
So over the last few years, we have, our club has had a number of sites, Happy Workers, Lemon Street, most recently Gateway, and specifically opening for infants 1s and 2s, really focusing on that population. And so I think that, and they're all quality early learning sites. I think there's just there's like a compounding of challenges here. I think when we talk about, access, and we're opening up these Quelly sites, it really is for the family, where's my job and where do I live? And how's that transportation working? So sometimes I think there's limited infants 1s and 2s. Also, if there is availability, it may not be in the location that family really needs that site to be. In addition to that, what we're seeing is our children, since it was before the pandemic, but certainly since the pandemic, experiencing a lot of challenges, a lot of behavioral, social, emotional, all of those pieces, which then our teachers, who were already challenged to begin with, are now even more challenged. And so trying to provide them training, coaching, mentoring, support, and pay, all of these things are impacting. And what we know is that, what's really important is consistency. So for children to show up, complete VPK, right? To make sure that that's a priority, for teachers to be consistent and know how to, really nurture, educate, and continue to grow our youngest in this community. So I think we just have a few compounding issues. We're trying, I think, over the last several years to open up more spaces in our community as best as we can without opening up a whole brand or having to build a whole brand new, childcare center, but where we can convert rooms to infants 1s and 2s as much as possible. But it is more expensive. Those are lower ratios, so that's another challenge is that, for our community, you have 1 adult and 3 children, which I think, for quality purposes, that's really important. But that limits, again, the space and the amount of capacity available.
Thank you very much. Oh, Sarah, did you still?
Nope.
Oh, good.
Chime in one more, Judge
Yes.
Moore. Last year, the school district, we closed an alternative school and reopened it as a childcare center for the same reason that you just said, is it's employees of everywhere, right? So we have about 100 1-year-old and 2-year-olds in a site. It's quite a sight to see. But you can't go see it because you're not licensed, right? I mean, the licensing it's a bear. But I guess I say that to say, I echo what Ms. Molo said and Ms. Nage said, in that I think it is a larger community issue, and I think what Mike said earlier about what does welfare look like today, we do it as a retention strategy for our employees because we want them to come back to work. We're heavily female, right? And so we want them to come back. We actually offer it at below market rate to our employees because we want them coming to work and we want their children in a good space. But I think there's a lot of industries that would be in a similar space that might say to us, you help us get there and we'll fund the other side of it because it's such a critical component to the workforce. And it's at all incomes and at all education levels, and the results of that, education-wise, are such a great investment.
And I want to say thank you for doing that, because I've had a couple younger attorneys that had to leave because they just couldn't afford it, so. Yes. Okay. So next, we're going to presentation for Turbo Babies, and that will be by Ms. Henson and Dr. Jesse Strong.
Good morning. I am Alicia Henson. I'm the Marketing Associate for JWB, and I am also the lead of the Turbo Babies campaign. So I'm here to report on what we were able to accomplish in year 2. Let's see. Turbo Babies is JWB's early childhood awareness campaign. We launched in January of 2023 with the vision to get and keep babies on track developmentally from birth to 3 years old. So we had a great conversation to segue into what we're talking about today. We'll dive right into our parent and caregiver reach. So as you can see in this graph, here we're tracking reach to parents and caregivers by our campaign partners through face-to-face education and the distribution of our pit crew bags, as well as outreach that happens at community events. So since the campaign is one of our CEO goals, we track against fiscal year and also calendar year. You can see the targeted stretch goal marked in red and how we were able to exceed that goal for both year 1 and year 2. And we're totally excited that we are approaching the 10K mark when it comes to reaching parents and caregivers. So we grew our pit crew last year. How did we do that? We did that by reaching parents, by engaging partners, and by educating the public. So when we talk about reaching parents, we always include grandparents, uncles, aunts, formal caregivers, informal caregivers, anyone who is taking care of a baby, that's who we're talking about reaching. And we are able to do that through community outreach events. So last year, we attended more than 40 community outreach events throughout the year. And while I can't detail all 40, and I'll spare you that, I have to say that these events are really where the magic happens. You know, we're able to meet families where they are. We are able to build brand recognition, and we're able to really connect with thousands throughout the year at those community outreach events. And so I'll just give a quick example. You'll see on the top in blue, we had the pleasure of attending PCS's annual Experience Day this past December. And we even had the pleasure of Superintendent Hendricks stopping by our table. And I think it was a testament that day of our brand recognition being built, because he came by and said, man, I'm seeing those Turbo Baby bags everywhere. So that is really in works. So along with attending other events hosted by other organizations, we also host our own events in partnership with our Turbo Baby partners. So just this last September, we partnered with 3 public libraries. Again, we were meeting families where they are. We hosted racetrack read-along events around National Read a Book Day. And I just want to give a special thanks to our library partners, St. Pete Library, Largo, and Tarpon Springs Library. Of course, this event was a success with the help of our internal planning team. We've got a great internal planning team. And I want to give a special thank you to the gentleman in the lower corner, Mr. McCurrick, who came out and brought his pit crew shirt out and was there engaging with families, engaging with babies. And you'll see Jamie Cole and her little one there as well. So these events attracted diverse families, and most importantly, it modeled the importance of reading to babies early and often. It's never too early to start reading to babies. So last May, we unveiled our Turbo Babies permanent exhibit at Great Explorations Children's Museum, and we also hosted a morning at the museum for our pit crew families. During that event, we also debuted our Anytime is Turbo Time video, and that is playing on a loop at the Tiny Explorers Lagoon. That is a space dedicated to families of infants and toddlers at the museum. And so since that launch in May, the museum has welcomed over 15,000 families with babies under age 3. So clearly, Great Explorations has proven to be an amazing partner and a great vehicle for the Turbo Babies message. Our video is also now up on our website and will be an evergreen tool that we hope to play and feature in other locations. You can think of public spaces like pediatrician waiting rooms, places like that. So in August, we hosted a partner refueling lunch and learn. This event allowed us to make sure that campaign partners were distributing our information, our messaging consistently. They all had the same tools and the same orientation. It allowed us to remind them the importance of parent surveys. We're collecting parent surveys. And it also gave them a reminder to drive families to our website for engagement. So we have new features on our website, a new community page. And it also gave us the chance to hear from them right then and there. We conducted a survey where everyone was able to respond, and that really helped boost our survey response rate for partners. So here, this is one of my favorite slides. You can see that our partners truly drive this campaign. Of our total reach last year, more than half was thanks to our partners. And we were able to double the number of partners, of Turbo Baby partners, from year 2023 to year 2024. And so several of our partners are here today with us. If you're a Turbo Baby partner, can you please stand to be recognized? Thank you so much for your dedication. So, we also use marketing and communication strategies to educate and reach the broader public and to target key audiences. So in 2024, we plan to increase our efforts with 3 media pushes. In 2025, we plan to increase our efforts with 3 media pushes. In 2024, we did 1. And we did that by partnering with our Vistra Communications to promote the campaign in that public library event that happened in September. So we placed ads in papers like Tampa Bay Times, the Tampa Bay newspapers, and then for a hyper-local approach, we also had a write-up in I Love the Burgh. We also promoted our message through television and social media. With the help of Yurides Garcia, who's here with us today, we were able to target and reach the Hispanic community with a viewership of over 400,000. And so all of those efforts really helped to drive people to our events, and it also helped to drive people to our website. And so here's just a little breakdown of our website reach, how many people are viewing the page, how many people are registering on the page. And it's always interesting to see, where people are coming from. So what I love to see about the website is how it allows us to get outside of the walls of JWB, beyond our boundaries of Pinellas County, at no extra cost. And so this is just an example of some of the ways that we enhanced our website. We added a community news page this year, which includes fresh blog content that's going to keep people coming back to our website. We have a place for upcoming events where people can come and find where Turbo Babies will be in the community, and they can also share photos of their little ones. We all love photos of Turbo Babies. So this was also our first year implementing the birthday club. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So On your table, you'll see an orange mailer, orange padded mailer. And so in that is an example of what someone who signs up for the birthday club would get. So this is Mateo, and he was able to celebrate his 3rd birthday through the birthday club. And so what's in there is a VPK learning book. It talks about the importance, the power of pre-K is what it is. And so, of course, that's one of our long-term impacts that we're hoping that people who engage with Turbo Babies will be able to register their child for pre-K. It talks about, they also get a ticket for 4, a family pass for 4 to Great Explorations Museum. And that's a place where people can just build some memories. I'm sure this was a very memorable day for him. So it's a great partnership. And so with that, Mateo's dad, of course, reached out and just let us know how happy he was to be able to have that chance of connection and building connection. And so another one of our CEO goals was to create an evaluation plan with key metrics. And so with that, I'll give it over to Dr. Jesse Strong.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Our evaluation committee adopted a World Health Organization logic model for the Turbo Babies campaign. And currently the campaign is focused on the phases for the inputs, the activities, and the outputs. We've been distributing those pit crew bags and surveys to parents and families and the campaign partners. We're beginning to receive some feedback from that. In time, you'll be able to see some of the outcome results, and we'll be able to start assessing our impact in the long range. The evaluation committee also developed a methodology with key performance metrics to focus on our targets and goals. Out of that methodology, we designed this dashboard. This dashboard is just a quick view tool to highlight our progress. And as you can see, there are 8 key metrics. And I want to draw your attention to one of our newer metrics, which is the collection of survey results and analysis of those results. Collecting surveys is a wonderful way for us to gather intel from our target audience. We're starting to receive some of those survey results as preliminary survey feedback. And overwhelmingly, it's been very positive. With our families and our staff, they're using and enjoying many of our educational resources and tools. From this snippet, you can clearly see that we're on the right track, and we're looking forward to sharing more of that information with you as we begin to collect it.
Thank you. All right, so here is our ambitious 2025 campaign roadmap. So we've got always big goals. Some of those goals include onboarding a new position so that we can scale up this campaign, producing a TV PSA so parents and caregivers know that they are their child's first and best teacher, continuing to focus on key audiences like fathers, grandparents, and diverse communities. We want to launch a street team and pop-up playgroup so that we can continue to meet parents where they are. And we also want to identify new strategic partnerships. So you can think of organizations like sports teams, faith-based organizations, malls, and more. We have a chance to dream up a lot. So I want to end with thanking you for your role in the pit crew. As we head into 2025, we know we've got great work, a lot of potential ahead of us, and clearly there's a need to fill. So we know that this campaign can have a great impact on families and children. Professionally, I know the importance of investing in children 0 to 3, and personally, with my own Turbo Baby on the way, I know how crucial it is to have just people in your corner, cheering and steering you towards success, really making you feel empowered as a parent that can educate. And so we are looking forward to having all of our babies on track in Pinellas County. Thank you.
Great presentation, Ms. Newkirk.
You've come a long way, and you've done a tremendous job over the last year in such a short period of time. And congratulations on your Turbo Baby on its way. What I was also very interested in seeing, because the first time we showed these charts, I asked the question about who was actually using Turbo Baby, who actually accessed it. And at that point in time, it was well over 15, almost 20%, if I remember correctly, internationally, and very few in Pinellas County. Well, that is totally reversed, which is fantastic. Here's part of our growth for the children. But I'm really pleased to see where you are. I'm really pleased to hear we're heading further into this and expanding, because it is, as we've all talked about, the most important part of a child's growth is during this time, and hopefully that'll help us answer the real questions and address the real issues that have been causing us to fund at level reading and other programs by this amazing program. So keep up the good work. Best of luck with your new baby, and look forward to hearing more great news. Thanks.
Next, we have our CEO report by Ms. Houghton.
First, I want to start out by thanking our own board member, Kristen Nage, who donated a lot of books. She had access to 60 boxes, not 60 books, 60 boxes of books that were gently used from St. Paul's School, and she reached out to us, asked if we could get them in the right hands and deliver them to us. I'm happy to say that we were able to distribute each and every book to our grade level partners already out in the community, working with kids to enhance their reading abilities. So those include programs that we fund in literacy and out of school time and early learning programs. So thank you again for instilling a love of reading in our families. In December, our Mid-County Community Council, an amazing group on any given day, hosted a holiday dinner for 16 families from Pinellas Park, Largo, High Point, and Lillman, where children received, well, they saw Santa, received gifts, including 10 brand-new bicycles. The event would not have been possible without the City of Pinellas Park and People Helping People organization, who joined JWB staff, council, and youth leadership members to spread joy to children during the holidays. It has been an annual event, but it just continues to be amazing and wonderful every year. And a special thanks to JWB Board Vice Chair Jim Milliken, as well as to Pinellas Park officials, City Manager Bart Diebold and Councilwoman Patty Reed and her husband Bill. So a lot of representation in loving these families around this time. I'm also pleased to share the news that the Florida legislature had approved to expand the eligibility for kids care, which will provide thousands more children whose income is higher than the Medicaid threshold, access to affordable health care, and help families who are working their way up the economic ladder and to cut childhood poverty. This is a good step in a good direction. A special thanks on this particular point to our delegates who co-sponsored that legislation, Representatives Anderson, Burfield, and Cheney. And we had a chance to publicly thank them when JWB Public Policy Director Becca Teeter addressed the Pinellas delegation at their January 9th meeting. Ms. Teeter recognized the delegation for their leadership during the recent hurricanes and shared some of JWB's relief efforts for families in the aftermath of the 3 storms, as well as thanking these legislators for their support of our summer book bus and our food distribution events. Many in our delegation attended one or more of those events. I would just point to something that is at your desk or table, just FYI. We have a listing of all of the programs that JWB funds in the prevention of child abuse and neglect area. Now, I want to be clear that we have many programs that cross over, that are in two categories. They may be in the 0 to 3 strategic area, as well as prevention of child abuse and neglect. For instance, a home visiting program would be in that. So this is, there is overlap, but the total dollar amount that you have approved for the current year is over $44 million, and you can see the various programs. We also shared, and it's also at your table, a summary of one of the newer programs we funded pursuant to your strategic direction, that we do more in the 0 to 3 space. So this program has been in existence for 2 years, 3? 2 years. YMCA of the Suncoast conducts a program that is a child protection community education program, and you can see more detail about that, but in particular, it includes components of teaching kids how to keep themselves safe in a variety of venues, but including online. Let's see. Martin Luther King Day is coming up just around the corner, and in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day on January 20th, JWB will once again have a presence in the community, across the community, at multiple events from Tarpon Springs to St. Petersburg. These include the Tarpon Springs MLK Day Breakfast and Parade this Saturday, and on Monday, 2 MLK Day breakfast events, one in Clearwater and one in St. Petersburg, plus our Turbo Babies campaign and its pit crew will once again participate in St. Pete's MLK Day Parade. We have made Alicia promise that she sits in the truck going through the parade and not walk the length of the parade, but she insisted on being there. You should have received an invitation to the breakfast events from our board clerk, Olivia, and as of the last I knew, we still had some room at those tables if you're interested in attending either of those breakfast events with us. I'm guessing you all read in the paper, but it bears repeating. Raymond James Ready for School funding grant, an extraordinary corporate donation and program. Raymond James has launched Ready for School, committing more than $7.5 million to nonprofits dedicated to enhancing educational opportunities and support systems for students in the Tampa Bay area. So this goes beyond Pinellas County. Ready for School champions a holistic, research-backed approach to student success, investing time, resources, and expertise to help students achieve their unique goals inside, outside, and beyond the classroom. As part of that program, Raymond James has pledged a 3-year, $2.5 million plus commitment to the first cohort of recipients that include 11 organizations, several of which are JWB-funded agencies or partners, including the Boys and Girls Club and the St. Petersburg Free Clinic. The letter isn't quite out the door yet, but I'll be sending a letter to my longtime friend Paul Riley, CEO of Raymond James, to congratulate and to thank him for this latest extraordinary commitment. And we'll also send a similar letter to longtime colleague Andrea Masterson, who is their vice president for community impact. They not only are giving a great deal, but they're doing it in a very thoughtful way. As a reminder, please join us at the 2025 Children's Summit, which is titled For the Love of Kids, on Friday, February 14th. So yes, that's Valentine's Day, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the SPC Seminole campus. You should have already received a calendar invitation from Olivia, along with an invitation with a registration link, but I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Next, we are moving to our informational items. Any questions, concerns, comments regarding the informational items? We're now at our open agenda. Do we have any public comments before I go to the board? Any comments from the board at this time? Yes, Commissioner Latvala, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am on this board because citizens and voters in District 5 thought it worthy to elect me to the County Commission, and 6 of my colleagues thought it worthy enough to appoint me to this board. But it's not just a board assignment, it's something that I wanted to do and I asked to do. It was either the first or second request board assignment the last 2 years, both for the mission of JWB, but also because of the history. The people that have sat in these seats, the Bernie McCabe's, the Bob Dillingers, the people that are on the wall right outside that door that this room is named after. And before I talk about what I wanted to talk about, I want to point out that I've been satisfied with Ms. Houghton's performance as our CEO, and both of my evaluations on this board have reflected that. Last week, I received an email, and I assume the board received an email early one morning about a employee at that time and some things that were going on. And I immediately sent a text to Beth, and I think the gist of that text was, I'm thinking about you and your team. Immediately after that, I saw some media reports. I think one report in the media actually happened the night before. So then I did what I thought wise to do, and that was talk to our county attorney, Jewel White, because I wanted some legal advice, but also some, guidance. So that afternoon, I called Beth, and I believe that was Tuesday, January 7th. And this is what I found out based on that conversation, was that Beth found out about the arrest in question on December 26th. And she knew that at that time, she didn't know the specifics, but based on the conversation, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, she knew that it was related to child porn on December 26th. Myself, I was not notified as a board member. She was told by the person in question's defense attorney that it wouldn't make the news and that it wouldn't be newsworthy. And that was part of her decision with not telling me. I told her then on the 7th that I wanted that employee in question to be placed on leave. The person, the defendant's spouse. I wanted that woman to be placed on immediate leave. That day, I believe it was that day, I called Ms. Flynn, and I asked Ms. Flynn when she knew about the arrest. And she said that she was told Monday the 6th. And she was read the statement that was then released on JWB's behalf. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have made some changes to that statement to make it more in line with what the FBI had put in terms of the charges, the legalese, whatnot. So then after that, I asked our county administrator who, as a county commissioner, I can fire at any time. The county commission can fire at any time. I trust his judgment. And I said, you know, in a similar instance, what would you do if one of your top employees was faced with a similar instance in their family? And he said, I would immediately place that employee on leave. I would take all county property from them, all the electronics, and I would conduct my own investigation, number one. I would reserve judgment, you know, before I said anything. And then I would make 7 phone calls to my 7 county commissioners, my 7 employees, to make sure they knew what was going on. And I wouldn't say anything publicly because I don't want to put, you know, the organization in any kind of jeopardy, but I would conduct my own investigation because I don't want my own biases, you know, affected. So I wanted to express my disappointment in our CEO, and I've expressed it privately to her in the handling. But here are questions that I have, and they don't have to be answered now, but some of them are legal in nature. And going forward in similar instances, is what kind of reporting mechanisms do we have for arrests for employees and or immediate family members because of the data that we have access to or could have access to. For instance, our county attorney's office has, she has part of her clients are the sheriff's office and the clerk of the court. So they have access, her office has access to some data that JWB may, because of the nature of our work, may have similar data with juveniles. And also, in the future, if such cases reported, what are going to be our follow-up steps? I think we should do similar to what Pinellas County should do or will do. What safeguards do we have in place for any data related to juveniles? I think we've talked privately about that, Ms. Flynn. And what has the response been from our partner organizations in regards to this specific case, people that we fund? Has there been concerns that they've raised to us privately? And you've answered this question yesterday about the ongoing review in regards to data being accessed in this specific case, and I believe you told me the answer to that was no.
Correct. There's been no data breaches, and the employee in question had no access to any JWB participant data. And, excuse me, IT staff has gone through other systems and can speak to the fact that they have found nothing that concerns them or that there appear to be any type of breaches or concerning behavior within any JWB database.
Is there, Mr. Onks?
I just also wanted to clarify, we've reached out to law enforcement, or Mr. Bartlett has on our behalf, and law enforcement has indicated that they don't have any need for anything from us, and that this former employee is not a target, and there's no evidence that that she was involved in any way in the allegations. Is that right?
That's the information I have received currently, and
That's correct. So, Mr. Bartlett, thank you for doing that, and obviously that was after you were informed via that same email that we all got. But I appreciate you taking that proactive step, because that was obviously, I'm sure, top of mind for all of us to make sure that that was confirmed.
And for clarification.
Ms. Rutland, go right ahead.
Thank you. For clarification, this employee is no longer on staff.
correct, the employee resigned effective January 9th.
Mr. Latvala, I want to thank you for your comments, and just for my colleagues, I think I found out on Monday night. You guys may have found out Tuesday morning. I found out on Monday evening. And if I had to do it all over again, it should have gone, I shouldn't have had to say, give you guys a call. So if I missed it, accept my apologies. Any other comments? Oh, I just left the meeting. I totally left the meeting. Any other comments? We're to our milestones. Mr. Bartlett.
December anniversaries, William Bravo, 3 years. Gail Ingram, 3 years. Immaculate Matt, 3 years. And Lila Pletnev, 19 years. Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.